Have you ever done something that looking back on you kind of regret? And then maybe you spend the rest of your life trying to make up for it? We're going to tell you all about that in today's online campus.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Online Campus. My name is Jesse, I'm the Online Campus Pastor. I'm here with Carrol, and he's our Senior Pastor, and we want to welcome you to a campus that streams anytime, anywhere.
Literally,
yeah.
Right? Portico, we're one church, one message, many expressions. Every campus you go to, you're going to hear the same message. It's going to be expressed a little bit differently, and in our online campus, sometimes it's expressed here in the middle of Lake Ontario.
Yes.
So we're talking about regrets today.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything that you regret in your life?
Yeah, lots of things. I mean, all through high school, elementary school, I got suspended a couple of times. I think this one time I ran out of aftershave and I wanted to pull a prank on someone, so I used toothpaste and it burnt. It was the worst thing ever, so yeah, I kind of regret that.
My high school days, I used to wear plaid pants. It was like a phase.
Nice.
I really regret that. I regret I had bleach blonde hair for my high school graduation.
Okay.
I definitely regret that.
Yeah.
But like honestly, there's some other things too. Like some things I've done with relationships in my family and things over the years that I look back like, oh shoot, I really wish I had treated that person differently, or I wish I hadn't wasted 10 years of that relationship. Like you look back and you actually feel like I've missed something in life because of the way that I've worked.
Yeah, like I feel like I regretted the way I approached my schoolwork.
Okay.
And I remember after high school, I really paid for it. I had to take extra courses to get into college, to get into university. And looking back at it, I'm like, well, why didn't I just take it serious?
Yeah.
You know, when I had the opportunity to take it serious, so.
Yeah, and now we're out here in the middle of Lake Ontario on an air mattress.
I kind of regret this.
I'm not sure how we're gonna get back. Like we have a paddle, but we're out here today because we're talking about Noah.
Yeah.
And how Noah ends up in the middle of who knows where in a flood on a boat that he'd never seen a boat before.
Yeah.
And there's this line in Genesis chapter 6 where God says he regrets or he's sorry that he ever made human beings.
Yeah.
And so like there's this moment, hey, maybe God has regrets too, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna teach you a little bit more about why God says he regrets making humankind in today's online campus. So let me teach you what the Bible has to say about God's biggest regret. There's that verse that I had just referenced in Genesis chapter 6 where God looks around at all of humanity and he sees that there are a lot of bad, even hateful or mean people, and it makes him sad. And the verse, specifically verse 6, makes it sound like he actually regrets that he made us. Genesis 6:6 says, "So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth, and it broke his heart." Now that's huge to think that God might have regrets, but let me break it down a little bit for you. It's the end of the verse that is most important to understand the entirety of the verse. And you can't understand the beginning without understanding the end. It says that God's heart was broken. And that's because you and I, are God's most precious creation. In fact, in Ephesians, God calls us his masterpiece. He has so much love and compassion for us that he was actually willing to be abused and killed to save us from facing death and facing consequence. So when he looked around in Genesis 6, and he saw that humanity was so broken, his heart gets heavy, and he was sorry. So he planned to send rain. For the first time in history, it had never rained before, and he was going to make it rain for months straight, so much so that every living thing would be drowned. We think Lake Ontario is big. Imagine if it overtook all of humanity. And it would be just so that God would be back to this perfect sense of the Trinity, just Father, Son, and Spirit again. God didn't regret that he created us. God's love has always been towards us. God was sorry that we couldn't keep ourselves from trusting him and honoring him. God's sweet spot is the perfect unity of the Father, Son, Spirit together. And actually what he wanted to do in creation was include us, you and I, humans, in that sweet spot. And that's what he was doing in Eden. We talked about last week. But we proved to be untrustworthy. We kind of trashed his dream because we wanted to have independence and we wanted to have control without God. And that's what made him sorry. And because of that, he was ready to erase all memory of his creation, except that he found one family that was still willing to trust and honor God. And this one person, Noah, was enough to make God rethink his plan to wipe away all of humanity. And we see that in verse 9. It says that Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living on earth at the time. And he walked in close fellowship with God. And it was because of his closeness with God, before God sent the rain to flood the earth, that God taught Noah how to float out the storm on a boat.
We all have experienced regret in one way or another. When you think of the word regret, perhaps you are reminded of a financial decision that you made, a decision centered on health, or a decision towards a particular relationship. And at times we may not regret what we did, but how we did it. I know for me, there was a moment in my life where I cut off a lot of relationships. Now, I knew those relationships weren't good for me and that they brought a certain level of toxicity in my life. However, the way in which I went about them lacked the proper wisdom and maturity and judgment. It was only later, as I grew older, that I was able to revisit those relationships and come to terms with the fact that I could have ended them in an honorable and respectful manner. You see, in this life, regret is inevitable, whether it's what we did or how we did it. But what we do with our regret matters. In a state of regret, we can either progress or regress. We can either go forward or backward. We can either develop or decay. What I love about God's approach with the story of Noah is that God didn't regret that he gave men and women free will. He did, however, regret for the way in how we used our free will. It has always been through his mercy and grace that we experience freedom, but it has always been through our arrogance and pride that we distort his gifts. However, in the midst of God's regret towards people's sinful nature, God provides a way. He provides a refuge, a solution that would not only protect, but provide. God's plan in having Noah build the ark was a step forward, not a step backwards. God's plan was redemptive, it wasn't destructive. God allowed for us to envision and see how we ought to treat our regrets when they come. He modeled this for us with perfect wisdom and instruction and through mercy. And because of God, who directed his regret towards redemption, we too have been empowered in the midst of regret to experience God's righteousness, peace, and provision, not only for ourselves, but for others.
So listen, after watching a video like this, you may be thinking through, I actually do have some regrets. And it's okay, you're in good company, because what we learned, maybe God didn't have a regret, but there was this moment where he didn't feel sorry for what he did, but he did feel sorry for what happened. And that's kind of like what you were describing with your friends. Like you're not sorry that you made the choice, but it's sorry how it played out. And we all get into those situations, and then we can spend years, and they can be wasted years trying to walk through those feelings of regret and sorry, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. And so if you're watching this and if this is something that really resonates with you, we want to give you this link. It's portico.cc/prayer. And someone would be able to pray with you, to walk with you through this process of regret that we all go through.
Yep.
And you don't have to do this alone. You can do this with community. You can do this on the journey with those that come around you. So go to portico.cc/prayer for more information and to be able to submit a prayer request, and we can pray with you from there. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Make sure you share this link with a friend. Next week, we will continue with the Point of Interest sermon series, so you won't want to miss any one of these. And be safe out there. Go out on a boat and enjoy yourself. We'll see you next week.